Everyone to E2E for the VMware sponsor session. Yes, it is a sponsor session, so I will be talking about VMware product, but hopefully I'll provide some entertaining stories.
No way!
Benny, how are you? Okay, so Alex asked me to do kind of a state of the union of EUC, like how does VMware perceive EUC, what are customers doing, like what's real, what's not real. So what I thought I'd do is show our general kind of product strategy and slides, to kind of talk about experiences and what's really happening. So one of the things I thought I'd do is kind of make everyone aware of what we've been doing the last year or two, because one of my favorite movies is Ferris Bueller's Day Off. You guys ever seen that movie? Yeah. I love the line in the movie where he says, life moves pretty fast, and if you don't stop and take a look around, you might miss it. Because there's a lot of innovation happening in our industry, not just what VMware is doing and what Citrix is doing and what Microsoft is doing, but the entire IT industry is moving so fast right now. Even difficult for a guy like me who talks really fast to keep up with it. But what I want to do is talk about kind of the high-level goal. So this is our kind of high-level architecture of what VMware does. I got to say, I'm a little bit shocked that in 2018, I was at Citrix Synergy back in, I guess it was May, and we had a booth there because we're a sponsor. The number of people that are Citrix people doing EUC that came up to our booth and they're like, oh yeah, you guys, we use vSphere. You guys do that vSphere stuff, right? And I'm like, really? Like, VMware EUC is $1.5 billion business. How the hell do you not know we do EUC? Now maybe that's our fault, we do bad marketing, but the point is like, if you keep your ear to the ground on things that are happening in EUC, how do you not know what all the vendors are doing? It's like part of your job. Anyway, so overarching strategy, high-level goals of what we're trying to do. I'll just build this out. Four major themes, or four major pillars. Transform networking and security. That's through our NSX technology that used to be an on-premises vSphere thing, but actually now also operates in public cloud with NSXT. So leveraging a constant software-defined network across both private cloud and public cloud. Integrate public clouds. You probably know that we announced a big partnership with Amazon, where we operate vSphere native bare metal hosts in AWS that you can have consistent management across. Modernize the data center through things like vSAN and NSX, and then empower digital workspace. That's kind of what I'll be talking about through this whole time. So I wanted to first share with you guys, for those that follow me on Twitter, happen to know that I was in London prior to this. We were running our EMEA-based customer advisory board and analyst meeting. And on Wednesday, about 4 p.m., we've got about 40 people in a room, and the fire alarm goes off. And the evening before this, there were cards in each hotel room that said, we're conducting a fire drill tomorrow, so ignore it. So here the 40 of us are in the room, fire alarm goes off at 4 o'clock, and we're like, hey, everyone sit down, it's just a drill, it's just a drill. And then somebody busts into the room and goes, it's not a drill, get the hell out. So I step out of the hotel, and like everyone else, social media is like, I'm sorry, videoing and photoing. And just this billowing smoke coming out of the building. And this is maybe 90 seconds after the alarm went off. I stopped filming and photoing when I recognized that burning ash was falling on my head and clothes, and I was like, all right, time to leave. But this thing spread really, really quickly. The good news is everyone made it out of this building unharmed, all the hotel guests, which is amazing. And the hotel did a great job of actually getting us placed at another hotel nearby and gave us meeting space and everything, so it was wonderful. But I wanted to ask the question of why do you get up in the morning? And the reason why this picture is here and why this is relevant is VMware provides EUC products to a large number of the first responder organizations within the UK. And we do it all throughout Europe. But in the UK in particular, we have about 3 different organizations in the UK that are first responders that we provide our technology to. And the reason why I say, why do what makes you get up in the morning, or why do you get up in the morning, is about 90 seconds after the fire alarm, we stepped outside and police had already arrived on the scene. And what's amazing about that is you're talking a minute and a half after a fire alarm event, you've already got first responders showing up. And the reason why I bring this up is because one of the first responder organizations in the UK, I'm not going to name which one, but we did a project for them about a year ago, where their complaint was with the existing technology they used, they were spending about 2 hours a day per first responder doing paperwork in the office because they weren't able to do it in the car on the go. And after implementing our technology, they were actually able to save 2 hours per person per day that they were able to service the citizens more effectively. So when I think about what you do that leaves an impact on the world, putting more first responders on the street to service the citizens is actually a pretty damn good feeling that your technology is able to enable 2 more hours of productivity per person every day. So that's part of the reason why I get up in the morning, and one of the things that I think is really special about the technology that we deliver. We actually make people more productive. So that's kind of my short story on what happened to me the last few days. No major problems at all with like my luggage. They will recover it. Didn't smell like smoke. It was actually quite amazing. Anyway, so I want to talk about a trend that's happening right now in user computing. This has been evolving over the last probably decade or two. There's this growing gap between end user experience and what people perceive they want, and what IT requires, and as a result, what IT tends to do is the opposite of enabling the end user experience. And the best way I like to explain how this has transitioned over the years, if you think back a couple of decades ago, you came to the office, and maybe most of you aren't old enough to remember a couple of decades ago, but when you came to the office, you actually had superior technology in the workplace than what you had at home. And what's happened in the last 10 or 15 years is people have better technology at home than they do in the office. And the model of today is you get a new smartphone every year or every 2 years or 3 years. You download your configuration from the cloud. You don't ever think about imaging a system or restoring different things manually, all that kind of stuff. The user experience has changed. The App Store model is here to stay, and enterprise IT is the exact opposite of that. The whole idea that you would wait 3 weeks to get a PC, or wait hours or days to get a new application installed is insane in the modern workforce. So that's a lot of what we're trying to solve, is make it simple for the user. And some of the things that are causing this trend to occur is increased adoption of public cloud. And a lot of you will say like, public cloud, public schmout. But the reality is customers are going to public cloud at a very, very rapid rate. Modern PC OSs. So this all kind of started with iOS and Android, where devices can be managed from the cloud in a modern way without imaging and packaging software. And that's now reached Windows and Mac and other operating systems as well. Rise of mobile business processes and insights. Granted, most organizations only have about maybe 5% of their applications that are mobile ready, but they do have in many cases 30 or 40% of their apps that are web-based. And people are increasingly using these things on the go to be productive. And then user expectations, that I talked about, that kind of app store model. Change the device and expect everything comes back the way that you had it on your old device. So, hopefully this is not the first time you've seen EUC's sort of architecture of what we try to do in Workspace ONE. The idea is any type of application across any type of device leveraging an identity platform. The identity is key to this solution because identity is what actually gives you your context. It gives you your context about the device, context about the user, context about the network they're operating in, and these things can be combined in a very powerful way. I'm not going to spend too much time drilling into that. I want to give you guys, it's been an exciting sort of last year and a half. We've had 4 releases of our Horizon virtual desktop technology, virtual app technology. We've had 5 releases of our Workspace ONE platform in the last 18 months. Along the way, we've done 2 acquisitions, Apptelligent and E8 Security, and we've made several announcements about the future of our technology around Workspace ONE intelligence and trust network and various other things. I'll cover all those in a bit more detail in a moment. In terms of Workspace ONE, and I don't know if you guys can see this okay from the back. Hopefully the type's not, I know the last slide's pretty much an eye chart, but hopefully you can see a lot of what we've done. But we've been enhancing Workspace ONE to really make it simple for a user to enroll with any type of device, whether the device is a personally owned device, a corporate owned device, whatever the case may be, access any type of application. Web apps with single sign-on, native Win32, native Mac apps, native Android and iOS apps, integration with Office 365, as well as a whole bunch of capabilities around mobile productivity. We've also spent a lot of time focusing on security. Things like FIPS, things like DISA standards, common criteria, NIAP certification. These things are required in a lot of financial services and government organizations. So we put a lot of focus on that in the last couple of years. From a productivity point of view, Workspace ONE is our, I guess, analogous now that Citrix announced Workspace app. It's a similar concept of aggregating all access to enterprise applications in one space. And this is a native experience that runs on iOS, Android, Chromebooks, Win 10, Mac OS, every operating system device type. All the rest of these are productivity applications, your email, your browsing, and your content repository. People search is something we've introduced about a year ago, And people search is really interesting, and I talked to customers about this. It's a native iOS and Android app for a corporate directory along with your org charts within the organization. And every time I talk to a customer about the people directory, they usually say, oh, we've got a corporate directory. And I'm like, okay, tell me about it. And they're like, oh, well, it's on SharePoint. And all you gotta do is VPN, and then two-factor, and then log into this website, and then search for somebody, and like 60 seconds later, you'll have their information up. I'm like, that's a horrible experience. People search is like, open the app, type the name, boom, information is right there. It's all based on Elasticsearch, it's very highly scalable and very fast. In fact, VMware internally, we've got 7 companies or 8 companies in the Dell Federation of Technologies. The entire directory of all 8 companies is searchable by this one app. Very, very powerful. Now, also security is a really important thing for email productivity. So organizations that are currently using things like Good or Mobile Iron, security is a key part of why they do this. So we implemented support in the last year for S-MIME, email classification, rights management, leveraging both IRM and Azure RMS, modern authentication, leveraging SAML through the application. And then derived credentials. So derived credentials is a really important one for government military organizations. What we did with derived credentials is actually really interesting. We built it in a way that it's sort of a pluggable framework. So with derived credentials, the intent here is that you've got government organizations that use CAP or PIV cards, smart cards, to authenticate to their workstations. The problem with a PIV or a CAP card is when you're on a mobile device, the only way to make that work is to have a sled that you attach to your phone, and you got this big bulky smart card reader. So what derived credentials does is allows you to use the PIV or CAP card on your PC and then derive a credential that goes on a certificate-based authentication to your mobile device that you can then use to authenticate to all your resources. So we implemented this solution leveraging DisappearBread, Entrust, Interseed, Xtech, as well as our own native certificate auth. This greatly simplifies the way in which people can authenticate to high security environments while leveraging their PIV or CAP card, but do it in a mobile-friendly way. One other key thing that's a very unique differentiated feature that we offer. Historically, organizations have always invested in VPN technology, but the average user, especially when it comes to their mobile device, they hate VPNs. Why do they hate VPNs? They're cumbersome, they drain the battery, and generally speaking, they don't work that great on mobile platforms. So a couple of things that we did in the AirWatch platform. First of all, we implement per application VPN. And what's great about per application VPN versus device level VPN, things that are based on IPsec or SSL VPN, is those technologies provide access to the entire data center network. That's good when you don't want to have a complex scenario setting up your VPN, because you just say, hey, you've got access to the entire data center. What's bad about that, though, is the user has access to the entire data center. So if there's malicious software running on the mobile phone, they can now traverse the VPN tunnel and attack your corporate network. So what we do that's a little bit unique is we leverage something called per app VPN in iOS, Android, Windows, and Mac. And we are able to wrap a VPN tunnel just around an individual application and tunnel it to the data center. What we do above and beyond that is we combine the per app VPN with NSX in the data center so that we can terminate that per app VPN tunnel into a specific IP or port in the data center. Now if you've got a malicious app on a mobile phone, it can only traverse the network to a single server and try to compromise it. So you greatly reduce your attack surface in the data center by implementing NSX with your mobility per app VPN. So quite a unique value prop we offer from a security point of view. I want to show you this, and I don't know if most people are aware of this, but in March, we launched a new cloud service named Mobile Flows. Let me pause this for a moment. Okay, if I can find my mouse. Oh God, that's small. I didn't get it.
That's right. Yes.
Okay, so this is effectively what Mobile Flows does. This is a cloud service. We've built a number of connectors for enterprise applications like ServiceNow, Jira, Concur, Workday, all these types of things, Salesforce, ServiceNow. And this is how it basically works. You sign up for the Mobile Flows cloud service, and then if all you're using is SaaS applications, you don't need to do any additional setup. You can connect to the SaaS applications in the public cloud, everything's fine. If you want to connect with an internal application, you then configure your AWS VPC through a VPN to your on-premises data center to establish that on-prem connectivity. What we do is, through our email client, we parse the contents of an email message, and we detect what SaaS service or intranet service you're trying to access. And then, through our connector architecture, we expose the APIs of that cloud service or that on-prem service into something that we call an action card. So what we've done is we've read the information out of this email and took out key elements like the ServiceNow ticket, the incident, the description, the severity, and the assignee. Then we give you the ability to have action buttons that correspond to the most frequently used activities you would want to do in that SaaS application from a mobile device. Because in normal ServiceNow, if you click that hyperlink, you're kicked out to Safari or Chrome, and you're panning and zooming on the ServiceNow interface, trying to do what usually amounts to one or two things. Watch a ticket, reassign it, or comment on a ticket. So why would you want to go to a web interface when all you need to do is one or two simple things? So we express that as action buttons that you can do in this action card that the users can then very quickly, without having to two-factor or re-authenticate or do any of that kind of stuff, get quick action to resources like commenting or watching on a ServiceNow ticket. We've also got other connectors into into Salesforce to do things like set your discount level or add a person to a Salesforce contact, those types of things. Again, the intent here is to save your users time when all they want to do on their mobile device is 2 or 3 operations in a mobile application without having to spend a lot of time logging in, two-factoring, and doing all those sorts of things. This mobile flow solution, by the way, all the connectors that we built are out on GitHub, which of course is now Microsoft GitHub, but those connectors are open source, so any of you can build your own connectors. In fact, we've got a few customers that are building, insanely enough, connectors to on-premises mainframe systems to expose action buttons in a mobile email that actually do things on a mainframe backend transaction. So your possibilities are limitless, and it's not very hard to build these connectors for automating applications. So that's a generally available service. The other thing that we built was an application called Send. This was just released a couple of weeks ago. And what Send does is allows our productivity applications to interact with Office 365 in a way that respects the Intune MAM SDK requirements. So Microsoft, quite a number of months ago, opened up their Graph API for Office 365 that enables our product to set the Intune MAM SDK policies for your users for Office 365. However, when you have a third-party application that interacts with Office 365, it will often not respect those Intune MAM SDK settings unless it's an Intune SDK enlightened application. So you guys might have seen an announcement maybe 6 or 9 months ago by BlackBerry. They built an application named Bridge that is an Intune MAM enlightened SDK app. This VMware Send application is the same thing. It's an application that allows us to control where your attachments are able to be saved, and when the destination is an Office 365 resource like OneDrive, we respect the Intune MAM settings, so you're not allowed to save to a non-corporate resource effectively. So that's a Send application we just built. It's available to customers. Now, I want to spend a little bit of time talking about unified endpoint management because this is one of the core pillars of what we do within Workspace ONE. Now, I went a little too fast. So, our roots in mobility management came out of iOS and Android, of course. We did smartphones and tablets and those types of things. Over the last 2 years, we really focused a lot on Windows 10, doing a complete set of piece lifecycle management use cases around Windows 10. Then in the past year, we've really focused a lot on and really embracing Mac OS and building out a great deal of capabilities on Mac OS. And for those that are interested in these types of things, Felix and Peter are going to be doing some demonstrations of some of the Windows 10 management in their session tomorrow. We're also the first EMM platform to integrate Google Chromebooks for full management. And by the way, very important thing, our Google Chromebook management actually leverages the Google MDM platform. So we're not replacing Google MDM, we're simply augmenting and integrating it into our unified endpoint management platform. What's very cool about the way we implemented our Chrome OS management is we built a data-driven UI in the AirWatch console that anytime Google updates their MDM capabilities, those settings will automatically be surfaced into our console. So you don't have to go back and remodify our product to take advantage of new things that are coming in future versions of Chrome OS. So every time Google innovates on Chrome OS with their MDM, that's automatically plumbed into our platform. And I also want to spend a little bit of time talking about non-traditional endpoints. So wearable devices, rugged devices, IoT devices. Before I jump into that, I want to spend a brief amount of time on traditional management versus modern management. So I saw a blog just the other day by Tim Mangan, and I believe he's at the event, but I haven't seen him yet.
That Tim?
Oh, there's Tim. So great blog, Tim. Tim wrote a blog about modern management not being ready because he had done some work, I guess, on Intune, and there's some challenges with Intune around publishing different types of applications that are native Win32 apps, not Windows Store apps, but MSIs and MSTs and MSPs and all that kind of stuff. And not all those types of applications are supported on Intune for distribution to PC users. So I suggested Tim try Workspace ONE because we've been doing this actually now for about a year and a half, and we support every type of application, including rich task sequences. So in a traditional MDT or OSD type model where you have to do like 45 different applications with dependencies and mappings and only install this if .NET Framework is there, all of that's built in the platform, so you can do any type of application. But the key idea between traditional management and modern management is in traditional management, you build images. You inject drivers and build base images, you package your software. The systems are largely designed for on-network based management, and most PCLM technologies, whether it's System Center, Altiris, Landesk, any of them, they tend to rely on relay servers out of the branch offices to allow software distribution to happen. The model that we operate on is every device should be managed from the cloud. When you upload your Windows software packages, we replicate them on an Akamai global CDN. So when you have a traveling user in Singapore, they're not backhauling their Office 2016 package from your Office data center. They're getting it from an Akamai CDN, point of presence, local to where they're traveling. Then on top of that, we implemented a peer-to-peer technology for doing distribution in branch offices without having distribution points in every single branch office site. The most important thing is we don't rely on devices to be domain joined or receive Active Directory GPO or any of those kind of things. We can alter all the settings for compliance and security from the cloud to any device anytime it has internet connectivity. The device does not have to be VPN to manage it. It can be managed anywhere in the world. Now, in terms of types of devices, we spent a lot of time focusing on Windows 10 management to really nail it and get it right. And the differences between what we do and what most other vendors do. Anyone who's doing MDM on Windows 10 today is leveraging a set of APIs from Microsoft called the CSP APIs. The challenge with the CSP APIs is they only do a subset of the management techniques you have to do on Windows 10 for it to be fully managed. So what we do is a little bit different is we support all the CSP APIs as they come out with new versions from Microsoft, but we augment that with our own management agent on the device to get the remaining settings that are not managed by the CSP APIs to allow you to get 100% coverage of the security and compliance and management tasks that you need while those missing APIs are being developed by Microsoft. So 100% coverage of management technologies, 100% coverage of GPOs. We do some other innovative things like if you've ever done BitLocker management with MBAM from Microsoft, great tool. It just relies on some legacy approaches to how BitLocker management needs to be done. We actually escrow BitLocker keys into our cloud platform, so recovery can be done anywhere in the world. You don't have to be domain connected and running the MBAM management console to do that. And then, as I said before, all types of software delivery in the platform. Now, we announced and are launching a new service very soon. I can't tell you what month, but it rhymes with Mooly. So what we're basically doing is we're launching something called Airlift. Now, what a lot of customers are trying to do when it comes to legacy lifecycle management, moving to modern management, is they have a challenge of how the old way of doing things with imaging and packaging and policies versus the new way of doing things. And there's a struggle behind, you've got all these application packages and collections and SCCM today, how do I get them to the modern world? So Microsoft introduced something called co-management, where Intune and SCCM can be integrated together, and you can move policies and audit settings and that kind of stuff over. But it's a little bit lacking with some of the collection migration and software package migration and policy migration. So we're building a platform called Airlift that basically connects into SCCM via a plugin, extracts out all the components, migrates them over. We don't believe that co-management should be the destination. It should be a migration bridge. So our goal for customers is maintain these systems only as long as you need to migrate to modern management, and then shut down the legacy way of doing things and migrate it very quickly over. So that will be coming very, very soon. We've also significantly bolstered our Mac management, and again, there will be some demonstrations of Win 10 and Mac management tomorrow, but full management including Apple DEP enrollment and bootstrapping all the way through software distribution, patch management, the whole lot. Now, the other thing that most of you may not know is that we've got a big focus on what we call workplace IoT. And workplace IoT is really focused on all types of devices, wearables, AR/VR goggles, rugged devices, sleds, all those sort of things, mobile printers. And the focus is on cloud management with off-the-shelf operating systems, with a light touch customization, with something that scales to hundreds of thousands of devices. So you may not be aware of this, but we actually already have a platform for managing wearables that consists of all of these vendors. So Microsoft HoloLens, Vuzix, Upskill Glass, all these guys have AR/VR goggles that are already fully managed by the AirWatch Workspace ONE platform. Now, why would you need to manage an AR/VR goggle? Well, the reasons you might expect. You need to have it join a corporate Wi-Fi and deploy a certificate for authentication, deploying new applications, updating the OS and firmware. Pretty much the same things you need to do on mobile devices, you need to do on AR/VR goggles. So very rich platform that already supports a multitude of different vendors. Then there's other sets of devices that lots of our organizations are using with a rugged management platform for things like mobile printers, whether it's Zebra or Epson or Brother, or even enterprise sleds. So most of the airlines now are offering the flight attendants a mobile phone with a sled for credit card transactions that are typically manufactured either by Infinite Peripherals or Verifone. Those sleds contain software on them that also needs to be updated. So we support the management of those sled peripherals attached to a mobile device to ensure they're updated and secured. Update really quickly on Horizon. So we just launched Horizon 7.5. And in Horizon 7.5, we announced, we included the just-in-time management platform. I'll talk about that in more detail in just a moment. We also announced an extended service branch for Horizon 7. That's very similar to LTSB, LTSC for extended support. And then I'll touch on a couple of these other items a bit later. So a few things that came in Horizon 7. We support IPv4, IPv6 mixed mode. We do this through our UAG access appliance, very similar to a NetScaler VPX. We can proxy the IPv4 and then translate it proxy in the IPv6, translate it to IPv4 internal in the network to allow that to support. Added support for 1803 Win 10, and a very important thing that I've been spending probably about a year and a half working on with Microsoft is support for nested hypervisor for Hyper-V on vSphere in order to enable virtualization-based security use cases in VDI. Without that happening, you wouldn't be able to enable device guard or credential guard inside your VDI desktop. So we launched support for that in our 7.5 release. We added support for up to 200,000 VDI desktops in a single configuration or single site configuration, and added support for a new subscription license model for Workspace ONE and Horizon. We found customers want to move to subscription licensing instead of doing it as a perpetual model, so we introduced support for that. Now, just-in-time management platform, we actually launched this or announced it about a year ago, but it actually made it into the product in 7.5. I'm not going to show you guys a demo of this, but we've shown it at VMworld and other places, but I'll explain in essence what we're trying to do with JMP. JMP is combining our instant clone technology for rapid provisioning, our app volumes, application layering, and our UVM technology. You can think of this as a desired state configuration management platform. So in JUMP, you basically create a definition and say, I want 100 VDI desktops consisting of 1703 or 1709, these applications and these policies. You can then change that definition at any point in time in the day, and every user that logs on from that point will then go to Windows 10 1709. If anything goes wrong with that virtual desktop config, you re-edit the definition, go back to 1703, log the users off, they log back on, and they're back to the old configuration. So you can view it as a rolling change mechanism for VDI and RDSH to quickly introduce modifications and be able to roll them back in the environment. I'm going to spend a moment talking about our strategy for different forms of VDI or RDSH. So we've obviously offered Horizon 7 in the past, which basically means you manage the hardware, you manage the hypervisor management stack, you manage our Horizon software, you manage the desktop and app image. If, however, you want to manage less of that, we've been offering VMware Cloud on IBM software, where the hardware and hypervisor stack is managed for you. You just manage Horizon and manage the desktop and app configuration. We also have a managed public cloud offering from IBM that actually all you do is the desktops and apps management. And then we announced a partnership with Microsoft Azure, where it's the same thing, desktops and apps management. So in these two models on the right, these are true desktop as a service, meaning you pay us for the software and you pay the IaaS provider for the infrastructure. But this is a fully managed service that all you do is upload your images, upload your apps, and that's all you do is manage your desktop and app. Everything else below that is done for you. I want to spend a brief amount of time talking about our intelligence platform. Let me build this out. So we GA'd this in March of this year. And what intelligence is focused on is taking the data from all of the endpoints that we have that are managed by our unified endpoint management platform, all of your user authentications that go through our platform, and all of your applications, mobile apps, Windows apps, and we ingest that data into a cloud-based big data lake. The reason for doing that is once we ingest the data, we can start to do trend analysis, anomaly detection, those types of things. So how many devices haven't checked in the last 30 days? How many devices are running vulnerable software? Those types of things. We can also do correlations. So we can correlate a user identity to a given set of devices to map that out. Or we can correlate application performance based on user geography or based on device location. We can also do a set of recommendations that you need to do to remediate certain situations or have built-in automation sequences. So what I'll do is actually show you guys a couple examples of how that can be done. Our focus areas for intelligence is user experience, resource optimization, whether it's capacity planning or license optimization, as well as security and compliance. And I'll show you examples of two of those. So for one of them, this is an example we built out in collaboration with Dell. What we're doing with Dell is we're getting access to low-level hardware information like battery health and hardware BIOS information that we can use in this intelligence platform to make real-time decisions based on something that we find on the device. So the use case for this is we ingest all this data about the laptop and its battery life. We can then build an automation that if the battery health goes below, let's say 40% or 25%, we can then build a ServiceNow ticket to order a battery replacement for that user and notify them either via email or Slack that a battery replacement is on the way. Rather than the user having to call the help desk and say, I'm only getting 2 hours of my battery, what gives? We're proactively identifying that and remediating it for the user. So this is how it basically looks. God, that is really small. So we're going to build a dashboard here based on device information. So we'll look at enrolled devices. And if the enrollment status is enrolled, we'll check if the platform is Windows. It's going a little slow. We'll look up battery health. And you can see basically the battery health of these sample devices that are in the environment. Fast forward this a little bit in the interest of time. And you can pin that dashboard on the display wherever you want. Now the key thing next is to actually build an automation. So this is the automation. I'm going to fast forward this a little bit more. Oops, too far. So you can see in this automation screen, we'll basically say if the device is enrolled and if it's Windows, and if the battery health is below 25%, we're going to set up we built this automation engine very similar to the if platform, if this then that. So if this trigger condition occurs, then do the following things. So in this workflow, we're going to send a Slack notification, it could just easily be email, where you notify the user with the data about their device. This device name for this user, battery is below 25% lifetime, and we've already ordered you a new battery. Then you add another automation using the ServiceNow API to submit a ticket to the desktop support team to order a battery replacement for this device. And all of the fields, I pause it here, you can't see it, but all of the fields that are in the platform, such as the device name, the workstation name, the username, the model number of the device, the serial number, all of that stuff, asset tag, is accessible to this platform. So all of that can be embedded in the ticket. So the support team doesn't have to go back to the user and say, what's your model number, what's your serial number, what's your asset tag? All of that is plugged into the ServiceNow ticket automatically. So the battery can be ordered, shipped to the user, they can change it out themselves, and then the user problem is solved. So that's just one use case example, but you can imagine multiple examples in this platform. The other thing that we announced this in our March release of the Workspace ONE Intelligence platform. We announced something called Trust Network. What Trust Network is all about is taking third-party security vendor technologies and integrating them into Workspace ONE Intelligence so that we can be notified of a threat from a third-party security vendor on one of our devices, and then in turn expose our automation engine for remediation to do something based on that security threat. So here's an example of a partnership we did with CrowdStrike. CrowdStrike can identify, I don't know if this is actually playing or not, it doesn't look like it. So CrowdStrike can identify a crypto locker, ransomware on a device. So once they've identified that, normally all they could do is just clean up the malware or do their best to clean up the malware. What we can do actually is add additional remediation actions, like do a corporate wipe of data or applications. We can send a Slack notification to the security operations team. We can create a ServiceNow ticket for IT to go in and verify the device has been cleaned up. Or we can quarantine them from Workspace ONE so they can't log into any of their enterprise applications while their device has been compromised. So locking them out of key corporate resources when an issue has been discovered. This particular ransomware was actually due to the Meltdown vulnerability. So as part of this automation, we'll actually push the Meltdown patch to the device after the hole has been plugged by CrowdStrike in order to ensure this device does not subsequently get reinfected by another ransomware. So what you're seeing this trend line here is all devices that had that missing Meltdown patch, and that over time we've enforced the patch to go down on machines to remediate them before another device can be compromised. So what we've done with Trust Network is these are all of our launch partners: McAfee, Symantec, Netskope, Cylance, Carbon Black, Lookout, and CrowdStrike. We will be adding other vendors to this ecosystem as well. This will be launching around the VMworld timeframe. My team is currently building all these integrations. The other thing my team is working on as well is we made an acquisition of a company named E8 Security. E8 Security is in the space of what's called user and entity behavioral analytics. So what that's about is normally in our first-party technologies, so AirWatch and VIDM and all these technologies, we can do what's called deterministic mapping of data sources that we're aware of. So in other words, if a person has an enrolled laptop and mobile phone, we know that Sean Bass uses this Win 10 laptop or this Mac and this iPhone. When you don't know the device association with the user, then it becomes much more difficult to determine who is using a device at the time when a security incident occurred. So what the E8 platform does is actually ingest data from about 15 different sources: your Active Directory logs, your DNS logs, your router logs, your secure web gateway logs, and it ingests all of that into an analytics engine that will determine what's called probabilistic mappings. So identifying sources of data where through algorithms you can determine that this user is the most probable person that was on that device doing that behavior. And then we can use that to take corrective actions based on insider threat, brute force credential theft, credential chaining, any of those types of things. So the E8 platform will be integrating with all of our first-party data sources in order to do predictive analytics on the data sources. So I'm almost out of time. Just want to say that the high-level things that we're focused on doing: transforming employee experience, making it easier for people to use any device, any application, single sign-on, self-service. Building a platform where security is built in and very, very extensible with third-party ecosystem providers. And then modernizing with a fully automated platform. I hope you saw from a couple of the demos of intelligence that our goal is to make sure that everything in our platform and third-party platforms through REST APIs is fully automatable, so that you can automate till your heart's content. So hopefully some of those demos help show that, and my colleagues Felix and Peter will be showing some additional demos of the Win 10 and Horizon Cloud Platform tomorrow, so please make a chance to get over there and see that. Thank you very much for your time.